Welcome back to the Troubleshooting Life podcast. I'm your host, Jay Peters, my co-host, Craig Poston, where we talk about various topics, sharing our experiences on life and finances. Alrighty, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed part one of the Stop and Self-Sabotage podcast from last week. I'm sure you all will enjoy part two. So let's jump into it.
Yeah, so down to our next point, right? Or it kind of hit it already, but it's called procrastination, which we all know about that one. And I mean, that kind of hits like anybody. I mean, I know I procrastinate, just like I was mentioning earlier about the certification. That's procrastination. I literally could just set the date, set it out a month, and I know I'll have the knowledge by the time it's time for the exam, because I'm already living it as I work with Linux every day, right? And basically, I wanted to take an exam that's on Linux, and just to show or prove that I do know it, so I don't have to I can say it in an interview, but then I don't have to truly prove it, because it's like, well, if you took the time and you didn't, I guess memorize every answer, then you actually know how to do it. And I mean, if they ask you simple questions, most of the time you can answer it. If you know you work with it every day, you can answer the simple questions that you normally use, several commands, I'm going to say. Yeah.
I think a lot of people suffer from procrastination. Of course I do too, is because there's just this huge thing of senses of urgency.
Yeah.
Right. It seems like with work and stuff, right? A lot of people will come up to you like something's on fire.
Yeah.
Right. Where everything becomes urgent, and it has to be you that solves the urgency. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's just in society in general, right? Because especially at a younger age, if I'm middle school, high school age, college age, is that I'm looking out at the world. There are on social media, and I see people doing things, right? And they have things, and it's may or may not be things that I want, but they're nice, right? They're nice to have. They're luxuries that you more than likely would probably want, right? And then you kind of start comparing yourself to that person.
Yeah.
Right. And then now you have this certain sense of urgency to get certain things done. Like I have a sense of urgency to get high school done, get college done, get money, whatever it is. Right. So I think that just nulls everything else. Right. Or it kind of makes everything either urgent or not urgent. Right. So you get this very huge binary where I have to do everything now, or I'm not going to do anything at all.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, so for you said the example of setting a date. I promise you, I've set a date and I did not study until the last 2 days, right? There have been times like that. And it's not like I've done it recently, but let it say the last certification I did, I actually set a date and I actually took the time every morning to study, right?
Yeah.
But I will say that I studied harder and harder the closer it got to that date, right? So and I think that's still a level of procrastination, because maybe if you put in that level of effort or work in the beginning, you may have been able to move that date a little bit closer. You may have been able to take it, right? So, and that's the thing with people that set time boxes, is that it'll still take that amount of time, right? If you say something, you'll take something in a month, you'll take that entire month. Yeah. If you say it'll take a week, you'll take that entire week, a day, whatever it is, right? But I think it more stems from that lack of urgency, or that overall societal sense of urgency. Because I remember when I was younger, and this was in high school, and one of the instructors or teachers, he was confused, and he wasn't an older guy. He was, I think, late 30s, early 40s, right? And we're all 15, 16, some odd years old. And what he said was, when he was our age, he didn't feel as much stress, or that's what people were saying, right? People were stating that they had a lot of stress. And at that time, I couldn't answer him, right? Because, I didn't feel all the stress, right? But there were people that were coming up and saying certain things. Like there was this one guy, he was saying, well, I got siblings. And the instructor was like, I had siblings too. I had to take care of them. That didn't add more stress to it. And then there's other things that people were saying, and but none of them were valid. Even I was thinking, I was like, yeah, I have a sibling too. I'm not as stressed as you are. And I think it's just at that time we couldn't put words to it.
Yeah.
But I think is that one is expectations, right? I think the level of not that expectations as a whole have been put on us. I think the level of expectation has been put on us because, like I said, in social media, you see people at certain ages making a certain amount of money or having a certain lifestyle that you kind of internalize, well, why am I not in that specific position, right? And it's not like you're acting on it, but like the thoughts of it are just adding all that additional stress and stuff to it, and which may cause like that procrastination in other people. And like I said, sense of urgency, stuff like that.
Yeah. No, yeah, because and that's the crazy thing. You don't know how that affects somebody else, where they use that stress as a procrastinator, which is basically the same thing as self-sabotage. You don't, that without them saying or letting someone know exactly the reason why their sibling is causing them stress, or the thought of the sibling causing them stress. Because in a sense, we'll just think, oh, it's an excuse. They're not trying to do anything. But in reality, it could be a real stress. Like they might be supporting that sibling, you know.
Yeah.
They might be medical issues, but they're not, you know, communicating that exactly. Right. Yeah. So like when I was doing a little reading of this article, it also had like symptoms of sabotage, right? And you can stop at any point when you want to like talk about one of them, but we'll go back over them, right?
Yeah.
All right. So this one here, all right, refusing to ask for help. We kind of talked about that one already.
Yeah.
Controlling or micromanaging behavior, picking fights or starting conflict with colleagues and loved ones, setting goals that are too low or too high, avoiding or withdrawing from others, negative self-talk and extreme self-criticism. We were talking about that earlier a little bit. Yeah. Making excuses or blame shifting. See that a lot. Yeah.
That is one of the big ones I'm like very distasteful of.
Yeah.
Just like, and I want to like preface this, like I haven't had like really a hard life or anything, right? Like it's not like I grew up incredibly poor. It's not like I grew up like without parents, without, you know, certain levels of love. But I think a lot of people like to make excuses and like to play the victim card because it's easier doing that than it is to actually put in the work, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to say, well, this person wasn't in my life and that's why I treat you that way, instead of saying, hey, I need to stop treating this person so poorly. They haven't done anything to me for me to treat them that way. And right now I'm just in a bad headspace to where that's what's coming out, right? I'm starting to think of other relationships I had, right? So I just kind of call like BS on certain like victim mentalities or certain excuses that people will make up.
Yeah, I mean, because when it comes to that blame shifting, all right, this is one thing that I've learned, and it was from the military. The sergeant major used to always say this, and I probably said it on other episodes, right, where if something is in your 3-foot bubble, then you should take care of it, right? So like if someone needs help, they're in your 3-foot bubble, you know this person, you should help them. Or if there's a problem and you clearly see the problem, and it might not be exactly your problem, but it's a way that you know how to solve it easily, then, you know, it seems like it's in your AO, you need to kind of handle it. And it kind of makes you more of a responsible person when you stop the blame shifting or just neglecting something you can clearly see. And it makes I guess when it comes to certain situations, you're able to kind of jump in front of it, right? You don't sit there and just let it just crash, right? You can clearly see what's going on. So like, let's throw something up so we can figure out how to stop this, right? I mean, it's the same thing for work, right? People will quickly go like, no, that's not my job. That's not my job. Even though they know this may mess up the deadline. It's not my job. Let me just get away from it, right? Instead of like, hey, let me let this person know if they do this right here, this will probably take care of it. And then, you know, everybody's still moving along.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I remember people will be incredibly petty to the point where I knew people that said that they would not take out their own trash because that was not in their contract.
Yeah.
And I understand both sentiments, right? That you get paid to do a specific job that was not in the roles or responsibilities of that job. I get that.
Yeah.
However, as a decent human, to take care of your own waste and get it the fuck out of my face would be awesome.
No, we gotta take that out.
Says you, man. But no, really, like some people, and it is all excuses, right? And I'm not saying like you have to go above and beyond and not do, of course, your job. if you can do your job and then hopefully or healthfully impact someone else, then why not? Right? Like what would stop you from actually just saying, hey, yeah, I'll take out the trash this one day, or I'll provide like utensils for the office, like something like that, right? Like, what is that really hurting you in?
Yeah. No, I fully understand that. There was a few more symptoms on here: undermining your goals and values. Also, substance abuse, overspending, or overdoing it in other ways. Constantly seeking approval, and reluctance to speak up for yourself. Yeah, that one's definitely because it depends on the situation, right? If you feel like you're like the smallest person on the totem pole, right? You feel like, okay, it's not my responsibility to say something at that point in time, all right? And which can cause an issue later on, kind of like that 3-foot bubble that Sergeant Major was talking about, right? You should just speak up, and they use that one for a bunch of different things, right? Because if you're drinking at the bar, you see somebody that's getting harassed, step in some kind of way or deflect the situation, not fight somebody, right? Just kind of deflect the situation, get them out of that. It was different things like that, but it all made sense, right? It's to make the cohesion strong, make you feel more like a family. And so that was one of the reasons why they were always talking about that 3-foot bubble.
So for me, like speaking up for yourself, because I suffer or I struggle with that a lot. And that's more like kind of based on my overall personality, right? So for people that know me, like you can always tell that I'm a supportive person. Like I always want to help people. Like that's always like something that's on my mind. Like you'll never see me asking for help. Like if I do, it's like because I know I can't do it for sure. But you always see me offering my help or offering my assistance. Like with anything it is, right? Anything that I can take care of, I will try to help anyone as much as possible. But I'm also like a very process oriented person. So like you'll notice that I'm also slow with certain tasks. Like I can't just complete things like when the lickety split, right? I have to like process it. I have to understand it. I have to go through the rigmarole of doing it, right? But the bad part of that is that I'm not a quick thinker, right? Like I just can't think right on my feet, right? I have to have unless I'm been through that specific situation, I can't quickly think about it. So for example, like yesterday, I called the contractors because I noticed that the flooring wasn't finished. And I called them and I was like, hey, what's wrong with the flooring, or why isn't it done? He said, oh, we ran out of the quarter round for the baseboard, so we'll have someone tomorrow. And I was like, man, at first, like I promise you, this is literally the conversation. I was upset, but I was like, okay, I'll go grab some quarter round tonight, and if you guys can come by tomorrow, what time can you guys come by tomorrow? And they're like, noon. And I was like, okay. And I got off, and then my fiance, who's like sitting right next to me in the damn U-Haul, and she's like, we're moving in tonight. We're moving in right now. They need to finish it tonight. And I was like, all right, give me a second. And I really had to think because I was like driving. I was like thinking. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get this done. So I called him. I was like, hey, I'm getting the quarter round right now. I'm gonna drop it off. Can you guys have someone there tonight to finish it up? And at first he was like kind of going back and forth, but I was like, hey, we're moving in. Like you can see that there's stuff there right now. Can you guys finish it tonight? And then he ended up messaging me later like, hey, I'll have someone there at like 7 to finish it up tonight. And I was like, cool. And the reason why I bring up that story is because it's literally a recent story that I just had. And it was like something that just happened yesterday. And the thing is, what would have been better is that if I set a proper timeline in the beginning, like say like, hey, this is your hard date to finish at, then it would have been better communication overall, right? But when you have a hard time speaking up for yourself, there are certain things that are missed, and then you end up having to have that conversation at some point, right? When people are afraid of confrontation, it's not like that confrontation goes away, right? There is a sticking point to where you have to have that conversation, and you have to have that uneasiness to rectify what is wrong or what could be wrong. And I would implore everyone to have the conversation first. Like just have it all up front, have everything detailed up front. Right? So like, for example, like in my example of having someone do work for you, make sure that the budget is set, the timeline is set, and the expectations are set, right? So if I expect something to be done by a certain time, I also expect a person to be there every day to work towards it, right? You can't have those lull days because people got to take off, but it can't be the entire week no one's done anything, and then everyone has to crunch everything into the next week, right? And I will say it will save you so many more headaches, and I already know I'm going to have more of those conversations later, so it'll just build your experience to continue that.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was a good point you made there. I kind of want to loop back to the one where it was negative self-talk and extreme self-criticism, which is I was saying that earlier. Well, we weren't recording, but how I would just talk bad about myself, like, hey, kind of a fat boy right now. You need to lose the weight, or like, why the hell you didn't plan that out? Like I'll kind of just talk to myself like that, but. When we were saying it, we were like, okay, that's not necessarily as bad, but I mean, some people might still see that as negative self-talk, even when you are even saying, anything negative to yourself. But it's kind of more of like, as you were saying, stare the man in the mirror, right? Like you're actually looking at yourself and saying, hey, this is something you need to take care of. You need to go ahead and knock that out. So what do you think about that one?
So I will say, like, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? And I don't think people should really focus on the negativity itself. I think they should focus on the degree of negativity it is, right? So like we were talking about earlier, like me personally, don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to tell yourself that you're getting overweight or you're getting fat, because you are, right? That's just a self-actualization. That's not necessarily negative or positive. That's kind of in the middle, right? Where it starts to get negative, and like what I said earlier is that, well, you're starting to get fat. You are never going to get in shape. You've continued to try to work out. You've never been consistent with it. Like, you're just going to stay fat. You're not going to get, say if you're younger, you're not going to get a certain female. You're not going to get certain things in life because you're a fat piece of shit. Right? And that's where I'm saying, like, that is not constructive at all. I think just saying that you're fat is just identifying the problem. That's not necessarily negative. Like, I don't know where people got the understanding where, one, calling yourself fat is negative, and two, being fat is okay. But what I'm saying is that just that one statement is not negative. Concurrent statements about that will degrade your psyche, degrade your emotional state, that then becomes negative. Like, example, like, the same example with with money, right? Yeah. Like, you wake up, you can't pay your bills, right? You kind of just say to yourself, wow, damn, I'm going to be broke. Right? I'll be broke for the rest of my life. Yeah. And that's why they say that poverty is a mentality, right? Just like being fat can also be a mentality, right? It's just that situation kind of has a hold on you, so you let it kind of just stay there, right? But if you were to take the other actions and say, and kind of take it as temporary, right? I am broke now. I will not be broke later. Yeah. Right? I am fat now. I will not be fat later. Or another one that people would say will be until. I am broke until such and such, right? I am fat until I start working out. I start eating better. I start loving myself a little bit more, right? Whatever it is, right? Negative self-talk to a degree is bad. Just making statements is not necessarily negative talk.
Yeah. No, that was a good point. But because when it comes to that self-talk, it's usually so I could just push myself a little bit further, right? It's never really to talk bad about myself, but I try to watch it, but only because I've heard that you should always talk positive to yourself. But like, to me, it's like, no. You know that you're not broke, so let's work on that, right? Yeah, you're not gonna be broke forever. And that, the other thing that I've debt, right? So say like some people like, oh, well, I'll be in debt for the rest of my life, so they try not to do anything else, right? Yeah, because I've definitely heard that one before. Or you'll always be paying somebody, so you just do this or whatever, right? And it kind of it does keep you in that same boat, that same mentality where you don't get anywhere.
Yeah, and I think like what people don't realize is that for negative and positive, it really doesn't exist, right? So I think William Shakespeare said it best is that good and bad or things that are good or bad are only given those because of thought, right? Because you believe that is good or bad, right? It is in actuality and in fact, it is not a bad thing, right? Because like you said, in the case of debt, right? People will say that I will always be in debt and have a negative feeling towards that. Or someone like Robert Kiyosaki, who did Rich Dad Poor Dad, will be like, I'm always in debt and I love it because I don't get taxed on my debt, right? So, and even like, so one thing that I did like that may be construed as negative self-talk and was taken as negative self-talk is that, so IT, right, cyber, I was trying to get like my Security Plus certification. For those who don't know what that is, it's just a base level certification that a lot of people, especially in DoD spaces, will try to get into the industry. Right? And this was when I was broke, man. Like I was making $1,200 a month. Rent was like over $800 a month, right? So as you can see, I didn't exactly have the money to go pay for a Security Plus exam, but I did anyways, right? So I took it. It's like $320, and I failed, right? And I was like, crap. Like, I started to work on like studying more. And then I took it a couple months later and I failed again. And I got the exact same score. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why am I so bad? Like, why did it not move at all? Like, I would have been okay or maybe a little bit better that like I took those 2 months studied and I got a better score. Maybe still failed, but I got a better score, but it didn't. Right. And I was like, what is going on? And like, so what I did, because I heard a story about it, is that I took it like that because they give you a paper that says you failed. Right? It says your score and it says you failed, and it also tells you what to work on. But I didn't focus on that part. I just focused on the failure part. And I printed out multiple copies. Like I made copies of that. I put it on my fridge. I put it on my bedroom door. I put it on my mirror. I put it where my laptop was so that every time I studied, I remembered and reminded myself that I failed that and I need to work harder to get better. And like I said, people can take that as negative self-talk, but it was just the way I motivated myself to make sure that I was not in that situation again, because I didn't like the feeling of failing. I liked the feeling better of actually passing it. And I ended up passing it the next time. And I felt so much better. But I don't think it would have gotten there unless I did those certain things to really reinforce that I needed to do what I needed to do.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I used to do that in college. So I made a bad grade on an exam. And I would actually put that on the wall, not a good grade. And I had a roommate to go like, why are you doing that? They all like, so 43, I'm putting it on the wall. I'm like, I need to remember that I made this terrible grade. I need to pass this class. So I need to work harder. And that's exactly why I did that.
And I remember like, dude, like, so like my girl, she was living with me at the time. And she saw it and she's like, what the hell? But she kept it there because I told her to keep it there. And then, like I would go studying with a couple of my buddies, like they would be studying on their schoolwork and I would be doing schoolwork and certifications at the same time. And then like when I would do my reserve duty, where I would pull out my laptop, we'd be doing work and someone would see that like it fell out of my computer case and they were like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? And I was like, it is to remind me that I failed. Right. And like and they even like talk to me like now and they look back and they remember that. They're like, but you've gotten, and I'm not trying to bust myself out, but like from where I was then to where I am now is like leaps and bounds, right? And it's not necessarily that one action that I did, it was the culmination of actions, but that's what they remember, that I went from like kid that was making like $12 an hour to what I am now. And it was just like, they saw the journey. They saw the outcomes of the journey. They didn't necessarily see the journey, but they saw the outcomes of the journey. And they just had a certain level of respect for me for doing that.
All right, man. Made some good points here. All right, so we're going to get down to our frugal and cheap. We got this one here. I kind of just thought of it on the fly. Taking Ziploc bags to a buffet.
Oh, dude. Dude, I will do that. I promise you. And I'm pretty sure this probably came up because you went to the buffet last week. But but dude, I was so mad. So like, so we went to Disney, right? And someone brought like Ziplocs for us to take, and I typically take containers, right? Like, I'll bring containers. Like I have no shame, bro, no shame whatsoever. And like, and one of the places we went to was a buffet,
Yeah.
And the thing is, I was like, oh crap! I was like, I forgot my Ziploc bags. I was like, did anyone else bring the Ziploc bags? They were like, no. I was like, man, I'm about to run over to the hotel room, grab my Ziploc bags, because dude, those buffets ain't cheap. It's a breakfast buffet, bro. It don't cost a lot to make breakfast.
Yeah.
Like eggs and waffles, like that shit's like a few bucks. And then I don't know how much it costs, right? It was like, that's another bad thing about me. I don't really pay attention to how much things cost anymore.
Yeah.
Because I got to pay for them anyways. But I was like, damn, man. I was like, I could have made up all my money right here. Because like,
Yeah.
Because like one of the things they had for dessert was like macaroons, right?
Oh, okay.
Dude, like if you ever buy a macaroon, it's like $2 for that little cookie, and I'm like, this is just a glorified Oreo. Why am I paying $2 for this? I could buy like an entire tray of Oreos. But I was like, man, I could make up my money just by buying just putting 10 of those damn little macaroons in these Ziplocs, and I'd be good, right?
Yeah.
No, man, that's frugal. I promise.
Yeah. You wanted to be frugal. I mean,
I wanted to be frugal so hard, man.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because I guess it is a good way to save money. But then it's like the point of eating the buffet is to eat there. But honestly, when I go to a buffet, I get like 2 plates. I get an appetizer and I get like my meal, and then that's it. Not usually done, it's to stop me from overeating. So I treat it like it's a normal meal. I just like the fact I have variety, right? But I don't know, man. That's kind of all that. It's kind of you look cheap when you go.
Nah, man, come on, man. Like, nah, dude, because I treat a buffet like a buffet, bro. Like, when you say you get 2 plates, I get 2 plates each time I go up. Yeah. Like, what will I have 2 plates? I would just keep stacking stuff. Now, and the thing is, I'm a foodie, right?
Yeah.
And I'm surprised I'm like not like incredibly overweight, but like I would just like keep packing that stuff. Like you'll see me, I'll get like, I'll get like everything.
Yeah.
Like, even at like the buffet you went to last week, man, you see me, like I said, I'll just grab like all the sushi and just put it on there, just like all of it, because I want that expensive stuff that gets on there, and all the steak.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, man. So I don't do it often. Like that was the only time I ever had Ziplocs at a buffet.
Yeah.
And I definitely would have done it because that place was expensive. But because it was like $50, $60 per person.
Yeah. Dang, man. Yeah, that is getting kind of expensive. And then when you think about if you're going to be out all day, right? Yeah. So like that's one of the things you think about. Like, all right, let me stash some of this food because I'm gonna be out. And if you got kids, that's another thing too. Like, because you're like, I need something to shut them up so we can just get to where we're going. Like,
put some sugar in their mouth and leave me alone. And because we were only a couple kids, and you already know they don't eat that much food. But because like now, if you start putting like drinks in your Ziplocs, that's kind of bad. Like,
I don't know about that one, but I'm just talking about food, man.
Other food, food that can actually handle different climates. Like I'm not gonna put eggs necessarily in a Ziploc because that'll probably go bad as I'm like walking around in a hot ass area. But like, I'll put like a bread, like waffles or something like that, right? Or like granola, like stuff that can like withstand temperatures. Not something that like has to be kept at a specific temperature. Or like fruit, like you can put
fruit, yeah. So that's another, that one I can see people doing. Like they take fruit with them because that's a good snack on the way wherever they go.
Fruit, granola, like just different types of nuts, whatever it is, man.
Yeah, but all right, man.
So my version is frugal. Your version is what, cheap?
I think it's cheap.
Bro. The great debate, frugal, cheap.
Yeah. All right, man. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. This is Craig and Jay signing off the Troubleshooting Like podcast. We'll see you next week. Yeah, please like and subscribe. Yeah. All right. Later, man.
See you, man.